A band member vanished hours before they ever hit the stage, and that was only the beginning of the nightmare. There were just 6 hours left until their final concert in Cleveland. It was the last stop of the tour. 6 states, 19 cities, and weeks of exhaustion behind them. The alternative rock band Nocturne Hearts couldn't wait to go home. But before they could even take the stage, one of the band members disappeared, without a single trace. At first, everyone thought it was a joke, especially if it was Tyler. He always had a flair for the dramatic. Vanish quietly, return loudly. But this time, he didn't come back. And that disappearance didn't just threaten one concert. It ignited a chain of events that would change their lives forever. Nocturne Hearts was a young band formed back in high school. In the last 2 years, they'd reached millions of streams on Spotify. The lead vocalist, Liam, the others called him the Cement because he held everyone together. The bassist, Tyler, mysterious, talented, and no one truly knew his past. The drummer, Raymond, full of energy, always cheerful, yet sometimes hiding something. The keyboardist, Julia, the brains of the operation. From bookings to stage design, she handled it all. The guitarist, Chase, Liam's childhood best friend, loyal to the core. And their tour manager, Diane, middle-aged, composed, and tight-lipped about her past. Everyone in the group had a secret, but none of them knew that those secrets were about to be exposed. The night before the concert, the crew was staying at a hotel in Cleveland. Julia was working in her room. Raymond was drinking in the lobby. Liam was reviewing soundcheck schedules with Diane. And Tyler, he simply said, "I'm stepping out for some air." That was the last time anyone saw him. 10:47 p.m. The hotel security cameras captured him leaving through the front entrance. After that, nothing. No GPS signal from his car, no credit card activity, no phone pings. He had, quite literally, vanished into thin air. Liam wanted to call the police immediately, but Diane disagreed. "It's the last day of the tour. If we cancel now, the media will tear us apart. Let's just wait a few more hours." But as time passed, things began to feel far more disturbing. Julia entered Tyler's room, and what she found made no sense. He had no reason to leave. His clothes were still in the closet. His wallet was untouched. Only one thing was missing: a single photo. All the other pictures of the band together were still there, except for one. An old Polaroid of Tyler and Chase, ripped in half. And that's when the thought first crept in. This isn't just a disappearance. 3:21 a.m. Liam's phone buzzed. A voicemail. No number. No record. The voice was a faint whisper. "I know everything." It wasn't the songs that kept it hidden. It was you. At first, they dismissed it as a prank, just another obsessed fan. But then, the next morning, a message appeared. Spray-painted in blood-red letters on the alley wall behind the hotel. "Lies end. Curtain falls." Raymond was the first to see it, and his face turned white as snow. Because those exact words, he had written them years ago, in a private demo for an unreleased song. Only 3 people had ever heard it. But now, someone was digging into the band's buried past. And this was only the first step. Raymond stared at the writing on the wall for minutes. It was as if time had stopped. The last time he spoke those words, someone had died. Liam slowly stepped closer. "What does it mean, Ray? Those are your lyrics, aren't they?" Raymond didn't answer. He just nodded and muttered, "This is serious." But before he could even finish his sentence, Julia screamed. She had found an old notebook wedged beneath Tyler's bed. On the cover, written in shaky handwriting, "One day, they'll all know. But first, they have to find me." As she flipped through the pages, strange notes about each band member appeared. About Liam. Controls everything, but never talks about his past. About Chase. Does he still remember that night? About Diane. Not a manager, a witness, maybe even a blackmailer. Everyone froze. Liam grabbed the notebook in anger and hurled it across the room. But Julia had already noticed something on the inside cover. A map. Tyler had marked a location, an abandoned music studio just outside Cleveland. The band made a choice. Before cancelling the concert, they had to go there, because it might be where everything began. The next morning, Julia, Liam and Raymond jumped in the car and headed to the marked location. Chase refused to come. He was tense, uneasy. "I have nothing to do with that place," he said. But the panic in his eyes didn't escape Julia's notice. When they arrived, the studio was in ruins, the door rusted, the windows shattered, but somehow, the power still worked, and one room looked like it had just been used. Old band posters hung on the walls, but one stood out. It was the band's original lineup. But Tyler wasn't in it. Someone else was. Ethan. Julia slowly began to remember. Years ago. Back in their first studio sessions, there had been another guitarist, but his name had been erased from everything. Ethan. The only one who remembered him clearly was Raymond. That kid, the one who died in the accident. No, Julia said. They said he died, but maybe he was just erased. Raymond nodded slowly. That night, in the woods, we did something wrong. 3 years earlier, after a camp concert in Pennsylvania, Ethan had vanished. Police claimed he fell off a cliff and died, but Julia wasn't so sure anymore. Because in that studio, right in the center of the room, sat a flashlight, still working. It was the same one Ethan carried the night he disappeared, and someone had labeled it Tyler's fingerprints, confirmed. Suddenly, everything began to shift. What if Ethan hadn't died? Or worse, what if someone was using his name to get revenge? Just then, a noise came from the back room. Footsteps. Then, a song began to play, a haunting melody played on guitar. The tape was labeled in Tyler's handwriting, Confession, Final Take. And then the voice spoke. They didn't want to talk that night. Everyone stayed silent. But now, it's my turn. Liam lunged forward and shut off the recorder, but it was too late. Everyone's face had gone pale, because at the end of the recording, the voice whispered, "And Raymond, do you remember what you did? Or have you forgotten who helped you hide it?" Raymond collapsed to the floor, burying his face in his hands. They told me to silence him. One person was missing, but another, maybe, had never truly died. Or at least, his memory was coming back to destroy them, one by one. It wasn't just a disappearance. It was a reckoning. But with whom? After returning from the studio, Julia and Liam drove down into the hotel's closed garage. Raymond still wouldn't speak. He simply knelt on the concrete, whispering Ethan's name over and over. Meanwhile, Julia walked toward Tyler's car. It hadn't been touched for the entire tour, yet here it was, exactly where he'd parked it. When they opened the door, they found a box beneath the seat. The box was old. Inside were a t-shirt from the night Ethan vanished dark, dried bloodstains on the fabric and a USB flash drive. "We have to listen to this now," Julia said. But Liam hesitated. Maybe some things are better left unknown. Julia locked eyes with him. "Number, we lived this story. Now we have to hear the ending." Back in the room, they plugged the USB into Julia's laptop. There was only one file. Revenge.mp3. The recording began. "You forgot me. You buried me. But one of you could never live with the guilt." Then a familiar voice. Chase. We can't do this. If anyone finds out, we're finished. It's already too late, another voice answered. Raymond. If he talks, we're all ruined. What about Liam? He knows. He kept quiet because our careers, our dream would be over. A scream followed. Glass shattering. Footsteps. And finally, a last line. Diane knows everything. Something was terribly wrong inside the band now, and everyone felt it. Julia secretly began digging into Diane's background. Tour manager Diane Cooper. That name only existed on record for the last 2 years. Real name, Diane Blackwell, former profession, police detective. Specialty, missing persons and covered-up crimes. Julia's eyes narrowed. This woman wasn't here to make money. She was here to watch us. Julia and Liam rushed to find Chase. They knocked on his hotel room door. No answer. But the door was ajar. Inside, Chase was curled in a corner, crying. I didn't want this. I swear I didn't push him. But he never fell either. He just vanished. And we left it that way. Julia approached slowly. Ethan loved you, Chase, like a brother. But you learned his secret before anyone else, didn't you? Chase nodded. He was sick, getting treatment. But that night, he snapped. He yelled at us, then ran, disappeared into the woods. Liam clenched his fists. And you've kept it buried for years. But now someone was back for revenge, either Ethan himself or someone acting in his name. Just then, Liam's phone rang. Caller ID. Diane. Listen to me. Do not leave the hotel. None of you are safe right now. Julia. What do you mean? Who's doing this? Diane's voice was ice cold. I'll only say one last thing. I didn't join this tour for a case. I'm here because he was my son. Liam froze. Whose? Ethan's. Yes. This is no longer an investigation. It's a step-by-step vengeance orchestrated by a mother. The call ended, and the power went out. The hotel corridors plunged into darkness. When Liam and Julia stepped into the hallway, they heard screams from Raymond's room. They kicked in the door. Raymond lay on the floor, a cable wrapped around his neck, lifeless, spray-painted across the wall. Someone had to start. And in the corner, Tyler's t-shirt, soaked in blood. Now, there wasn't just a disappearance. There was a death. And before the curtain fell, this show would claim more victims. The police arrived. The hotel room was sealed off. Raymond's death was officially recorded as a suspicious suicide. But Julia didn't believe it. Raymond wasn't the kind of man to take his own life. Not that night. What he feared was his conscience, not death. While at the hotel front desk, Julia caught a glimpse of a security feed. At exactly 3:12 a.m., someone was seen leaving Raymond's room. Their face was hidden, but the shirt, it was familiar. The band's first tour t-shirt, the same one from the night Ethan disappeared. Julia turned to Liam. Whoever this is, it's either Ethan himself or someone who wants us to believe he's dead. Julia and Liam drove to the address Diane had given them, an old standalone house. The door was open. Inside, Diane was waiting. The walls were covered in photos, newspaper clippings, band posters, and pictures of Ethan as a child. Then Diane began to speak. You didn't kill Ethan, but you let him die, Julia whispered. But they never found a body. Diane nodded. Because I found him. And he was alive. I hid him for months, but he was broken, emotionally, mentally. A year later, he quietly took his own life. She paused. But before he died, he recorded everything, and I sent those recordings to you. Liam swallowed hard. The USB, those voices, that was his final legacy. Diane turned on an old cassette player. In the recording, Ethan's voice spoke. They weren't my friends. They silenced me for a career. But one of them One of them always wanted to help. Then came another voice. Tyler, I owe you. When this is over, you can forgive me, or I'll vanish too. Julia's mind flashed back. Before Tyler disappeared, he hadn't said goodbye to everyone. But on that final night, he'd had a private conversation with Chase. Julia unlocked Chase's phone. In the voice memos, she found Tyler's words. I'm helping Diane. No one should die without a mother by their side. I've already been living as Ethan for years. Liam asked, stunned. What does that mean? Julia responded. Tyler, after Ethan died, made it his mission to live in his place. And now, with Diane, they played this final game. Tyler made those video recordings. It was time for the final concert. The media was buzzing, expecting a grand reunion of the band. But before stepping on stage, Julia reviewed the backstage technical notes. Lights, sound cues, camera angles, all pre-programmed for a single name, Tyler. Julia walked on stage and took the microphone, but no music played. Instead, the giant screen behind the curtain lit up, and Tyler's pre-recorded video began. This final show is an apology to Ethan, to Diane, but most of all, to my own conscience. Raymond stayed silent. Chase ran. Liam forgot. But I don't want to forget anymore. Now, I reveal all your secrets, and then I disappear forever. The concert was immediately cancelled. The press learned everything. The band disbanded. Liam never stepped on stage again. Chase left the country. Julia became a documentary writer and published a book called The Ones Who Vanished Before the Show. And Diane, she was never charged, because no law could punish a mother for keeping her son's memory alive. As for Tyler, no one ever saw him again. Only one final note was found. This stage was Ethan's grave, but I was his voice. And now, I am truly silent.